please support companies who are supporting domestic regenerative organic farmers, because without customers to buy the product, then we can't keep doing it, right? So that's the thing. It's like, we really hope that people are going to rise to the occasion and pay that little bit more. And we realize that it is more, but that you are helping be part of the solution to heal our planet.
Hello, plant people. Hello, my herbal friends, and welcome to another edition of Everything You Did Not Know About Herbalism here on Herbal Radio, brought to you, of course, by the most trusted brand for quality organic product in the world. We're talking about Mountain Rose Herbs, and I am your host, Tommy Navarre. I am so excited because I got to sit down with two of my favorite people in the world, and I say that a lot, but these are just, I love them so much. I got to sit down with Elise and Jeff from Oshala Farm. I've known them forever. They're farmers who do it right. They really are incredible at what they do. We got to have an amazing conversation about organic farming and about regenerative farming. We got to talk about the herb camp that's coming up. And, for me, it was just like sitting down with family. I was so excited. I think you're going to love this. I loved it so much. So please tune in. And this is me talking with Jeff and Elise. How is the farm?
Well, it is busting at the seams right now.
Yeah, we're planting like crazy. We're planting valerian right now, and we're switching to lemon balm in about half an hour.
And you were able to actually take a tiny bit of time off to have this conversation, which I'm just cannot believe that you're able to do that right now with this
running off the fields, dirt on the fingernails. Luckily, we have a keyboard cover.
So you have so much happening in the herbal world, but I do want to talk a little bit about your beginnings. I want to talk a little bit about, so people that are listening have an understanding of how all this began, and how did you get into this amazing world of herbalism?
Go for it.
I'll start my bit, I guess. Well, I have my background in Western Herbalism. So I went to the California School of Herbal Studies, is where I first started studying. Rosemary's original school there in Northern California, and kind of caught the bug of the relationship that plants and humans have together. And, ever since have been a, herb school junkie. Like, I just can't quit going to classes and learning more, because, like so many things in life, the more you learn about something, the more you know that you don't know.
Right.
The more you need to learn. So, and then Jeff's background was in vegetable farming already. And so when we moved to Southern Oregon in 2011, we really Jeff was like, if you could do anything you wanted in the world and it didn't matter if you failed, what would you choose to do? I was like, I would have an herbal line of teas,
Oh.
That's kind of how we started, was like trying to source and grow and have a connection with the plants that were in our blend. So they were very regional derived, which is what we still have our original tea blends that we make. And we were just really started to look more closely at where things were, all these herbs are being grown. And we just realized that 90% of the herbs in the US that are consumed are imported, at least at that time. And so we thought, let's make a dent in that, a change in that statistic. And so that's kind of how we reached out to Mountain Rose Herbs and to other folks in the herbal industry. And we're really well received on like, we want to increase domestic herb production, but it's just not happening enough out there. And so, and then Jeff, we got the United Plant Savers. You can talk about that maybe.
Yeah, we went to a Planting the Future conference there at Herb Farm that United Plant Savers hosted. I want to say this was in 2012 or 2013. And that was the first time, because I'd always been growing vegetables, and then I had like some herbs in the garden for Elise's projects. And that was the first time, going.
What were some of those, like with the teas? Like, what were some of the first herbs that you were growing for the teas?
Just everything, even like nettle and lemon balm, were all getting imported.
Totally. Right? Borage. The teas had like 20 different herbs in them that she wanted. So that alone, I was kind of doing a little bit in the gardens. And then we went to Herb Farm for this United Plant Savers conference about growing endangered medicinal herbs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 2-day event. And it was the first time I saw, fields of echinacea and fields of herbs.
Yeah.
And I met, the farmers there, Matt DeBala, and Mark Disharoon. And then I also met Mark Wheeler, the founder of Pacific Botanicals, and Richo from Strictly Medicinals.
Love Richo.
And saw all those different locations. We went and saw Strictly Medicinals, and we saw, Pacific Botanicals the next day. And it was kind of like this light bulb went off. It's like, oh, well, I could actually farm these things potentially. And it took us a little bit to get, over there. We were growing vegetables, we were doing farmers markets. But over the next several years, we started building a client base, started building dryers and infrastructure around growing herbs. And
had you purchased the farm at that point?
No.
We got that about 6 months later. We had another farm up in the Green Springs that was about 5,000 feet. And
so we were harvesting elder and,
Usnea
and all the herbs that you do when you're at higher elevation.
Right.
So, but it was kind of one of those, we kind of joke that the herbs found us, and we're like, oh, there's a couple of folks that'll work really hard for us.
Yeah.
So we, this property found us, and which is now Oshala Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And, we pulled out what money we had in our 401k from working normal jobs over our lifetime, and sold our one functioning Subaru car for irrigation pipe and,
seed,
and borrowed money from friends and family. And we're like, come on, we did a Kickstarter for a dryer and, did all the things you do when you're a enthusiastic entrepreneur that believes passionately about something.
Well, that's such an amazing, farming story right there. Right. I mean, that you're literally selling your car to buy irrigation pipe. That's going completely all in. You just threw all your cards on the table. It was like, this is it. This is what we're doing. And we can't leave anything. We can't leave anything behind. We got to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the first few years were tough. I mean, Elise was driving a 1960s Chevy truck to 6 farmers markets a week. We'd load that thing up every morning.
It's still here at the farm.
Yeah, that was our one car between the two of us,
and
the only vehicle we had. And we were eating what was left over from farmers markets, and it was a slow progression to build it up.
Good thing we were able to trade potatoes for wine, so that was good.
Living in a wine valley.
That's true. That's true. I do want to talk about where the farm is at a little bit, because I feel like it's such a special place. And is it considered a microclimate where you're at?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a small valley, so the Applegate Valley is part of the Rogue Valley watershed. It's a really special place. I mean, the Applegate Valley has a really, really good climate. It's dry, but we get enough water. So it's kind of that great mix. Unlike a lot of the country, we have a long dry season, so it's really good for growing herbs and drying them. Really from May, June, all the way through September, October, we don't see really any measurable rainfall. So where a lot of the country sees a lot of summer rain, we're in a really good spot for growing, especially Western herbs. And we see that we have Pacific Botanicals located in our valley. We have Herb Farm located in our valley. It's been a spot that's been a mecca for growing herbs for
Yeah, because the variety that you're able to grow there, it seems to be more than maybe, I don't know if it's more than anywhere else in the U.S., but it seems to be that way.
It definitely is a great growing region, and kind of like you mentioning the microclimates, it's a good time to just chime in about that. We do have these narrow, windy little valleys that go off in different directions, and it's also an amazing seed growing region. It's one of the top, I think they say the 5 top seed growing regions in the world, because of our climate, and which also is really conducive to growing herbs because it gives you a longer season to be able to dry, also not getting your herbs wet. But that's also, we are also a GMO free seed sanctuary in Jackson County, which in 2014 we ran that campaign to ban GMO crops in Jackson County, and actually won 66%, got sued by Monsanto, won in federal court a year later, May 20th, and won that in federal court, saying, yes, GMO crops are an economic threat to people who are not growing GMO crops.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge win. And we're super proud to be able to grow in this region where we have this GMO-free seed sanctuary. So.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of small seed growers and seed companies here as a result.
And
of that.
what's some of the crops that they're growing for this seeds?
Well, this region's really good for growing beta crops, which are Swiss chard and beets.
Oh, yeah.
We had Syngenta here growing sugar beets in small plots because we have isolation because of these small valleys where we're like the Willamette. It's very easy for pollen to spread throughout the Willamette Valley, which is very big and wide.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates these great little, locations where we can save seed and isolate things. But we all need to play together.
Yeah.
And, that's part of like the seed trade, organizations and things like that is how do we share the pollen drift and how do we, share this thing. So it's a really interesting way that farmers work together that I think people don't really realize.
That's really interesting to me because it's something I've never thought about in the sense of that you do need sort of a enclosed or an area in which you're not going to get a lot of drift, correct? For that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you get cross contamination.
Right. You're going to get a lot of cross contamination. Oh, that's so
genetically
interesting.
modified crops was just, or engineered really. So there's a lot of modified crops. But yeah, the engineered, because then legally under federal patent law, you're not allowed to sell the crops.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would say, well, we won't sue you necessarily, but you can't sell the seeds that you just spent, 1 or 2 years growing, which obviously is not conducive to making a living farming.
On your own land.
On your own land. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I have a lot of, I think everyone does. I have a lot of family members, especially like my grandfather and his father, that were all farmers. And I can imagine that that would be, they would just not be able to understand that, how a company could tell them, something that they grew on their land that they just couldn't sell. That would just be unfathomable to them. What an interesting time for farmers, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you seeing any changes with climate change?
I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it definitely, farming is a career where you're definitely in touch and in tune with the weather and at its beck and call.
Mm-hmm.
And, being that things are just so unpredictable right now, it definitely adds a challenge into the farming, ironically, but not surprisingly. The herbs and the plants are actually doing better with it than the humans.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little bit more like, wow, we have to deal with wildfires and how do we protect and train our staff to deal with that, or these really intense heat when it's like, a lot of people are, advising and you need to protect yourself, but it's like, we can't just stop farming for a day because it's 110 degrees.
Right.
So it's like the plants are still need to be harvested. They still need to be tended. And so how do we as humans and our farm crew adapt to all of those changes that are happening is really kind of what's more happening to us. And then, just unpredictable, rainy times when it hasn't been traditionally rainy. And then it kind of changes our whole season and protocol.
So are you changing what you're planting? Have you had to change any of your crops?
Not necessarily, although.
No, what we are seeing though is like, we're in this really good spot. We're not so far south, but we're not so far north. That's why part of our climate, but we're starting to see more bug pressure. Coming from southern stuff. We're not getting the kill off.
Yeah.
That we would have gotten before from really cold winters,
Oh, I see.
We got dumped with snow this winter, so I'm hoping that that's going to be a little bit better for us.
And as an organic farmer, how do you what steps do you take to remedy that?
I mean, it's kind of like people and humans where we take care of our health. It's like, you want to have your body and your plants as healthy as they are possible so that when disease sets in, you have that ability to fight it off. And that's really where, the bugs and disease sets in on plants that are already struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of what really helps us is having that foundation of really healthy soil.
Mm-hmm.
So your plants are uptaking this nutrients from really healthy soil. And then also having diversity so that if we do lose a bit of a crop, it's not like the whole farm's going to go under. We're not only growing corn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have it in our tool belt to know and trust that, like, I remember, just having crops where you're like, oh man, like this was an instance years back when we were trialing a hemp crop for somebody, and I thought, wow, I can really understand how people, if this was their only crop
Mm-hmm.
and like the aphids started coming in, that you would panic.
Yeah.
But being that we had 80 other crops, we were like, let's see how this goes down. And then 2 days later, the ladybugs flew in.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of
All the
everything.
beneficials.
But I could
Oh,
see if that was our only thing that we were holding on to, you could panic
Mhm.
and end up spraying or doing things that if you weren't really like invested in organic practices, that would be really difficult as a farmer. And that was your only money coming in.
Sure.
So yeah, usually things, I mean, I don't know what else you want to add.
I think,
to
well,
what you do.
I mean, crop rotation,
Mhm.
we're spreading out like plant families, so we have a lot of mint family, the Lamiaceae. We have a lot of asters, so you're looking at like your calendulas and your chamomiles and your elecampane, and how do we spread out these crop families?
Mhm.
So we're not only rotating within the field, but we're also separating those. And, even if, say, we're going to grow a large block of something, we're going to break that up into several smaller blocks
Mhm.
and interchange with other plant families and other plant types within those.
Okay.
So that we don't just have one big block of the same thing. We have, it's broken up into 5 smaller blocks potentially.
And just like people, like there's great food you could eat, but if you ate it every day, the same thing, like it wouldn't be healthy, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you got to rotate what you're eating.
Well, it's funny. I had a conversation recently with a biologist, and they were talking about how intelligent insects are, and how they will target they just don't go out and target any plant. They will target the plants that are not healthy. They understand, between health and non-health, and that I found that so interesting. It's like, oh, of course they have this intelligence, but also you added to that the aphids showed up. Well, here comes the ladybugs, because the ladybugs are like, oh, here's food over here.
Exactly.
And a lot of it's learning that patience, learning to work with those, and there's that timing of the natural systems. It takes a little bit of time, and learning to know like, okay, hey, it's going to work out, rather than I'm just going to go out and spray it or something, which is more of a, not working as much with nature, but more being kind of imposing our will on it.
And there are organic methods of, spraying and things that people can do that have like even cinnamon as a base. So there are things that people do, but it is sometimes, farming is an act of faith for sure.
Well, so for the listeners who have a smaller garden, and they're wanting obviously to make it, keep it organic, and they don't want to spray any of the pesticides, would you also recommend just being patient and letting nature sort of take care of like these issues if they were seeing, insects in their garden?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a combination where you're also going to see a lot of times where you're going to plant a plant maybe in the wrong spot, right? Because we have a limited amount of space. Oh, I really want this plant. Maybe it's not the right for the microclimate. As farmers, we want to do it too. We're trying to always push a little bit past our zones and do some fun experiments. So there's going to be stuff that you're going to plant that's just not going to work out. And I think that's part of understanding that, there's a lifespan to plants as well.
But it seems like that's something to kind of almost fun, right? Like you can make that sort of this a learning experience.
Totally. And I think, the only way we've gotten as far as we can is by making a lot of mistakes, we, of course we hate, having plants not survive, but you start to learn like, oh, okay, well, starting to look at plants' inherent nature, like, oh, this is nettle or a mint. Well, this would be a great place next to that leaky hose bib, or where I'm always dumping out, some gray water or something, versus I'm trying to grow white sage. I don't want that in a wet, shady spot. That's a desert crop, So kind of looking at plants' inherent nature and where I can place them within my garden, I think is really important. And just kind of, I think that's kind of the biggest, downfalls that people have in a small space is, just kind of making sure places, that you're putting things in the appropriate spot.
I'd imagine full sun versus shade even, right? I mean, that's got to be the biggest.
Yeah. I think watering, people sometimes have gardens and they're set up on one watering system and everything's getting watered the same. And some plants, can take 10 days 2 weeks without getting water or no water. And other plants are wanting water every few days. And so that really, how you plant in a garden does get challenging.
And you talked about microclimates. I mean, every property, every little home has so many microclimates, even in your house, when you're looking at the different windows and the different, what way you're facing, or the, shade from this tree or that fence or
Right.
whatever. So
Right.
learning to read your microclimates, and I think, there's a lot of patience that, comes in gardening, and understanding that, hey, I'm going to plant in abundance, and some of them the bugs are going to get, or the rabbits, or the squirrels, or the gophers. And
Yeah.
that's part of, I think, for me at least, being, an organic farmer, and just a gardener, is just working with that, and understanding that not everything I plant is going to be harvested by me,
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's funny. I had a conversation with a master gardener at one point. I don't remember exactly when, but I asked them, said, "Oh, what's a simple trick? What's something that's really easy for someone that they don't think about?" And they said shade cloth. It's like, it's cheap, and it can come in, you can put shade cloth over certain plants and they're going to thrive. And you don't think about that. You think about, oh, I got to have a garden. It's got to be in this one spot, full sun all day long. And these poor plants are just like, I can't take that. It's just too much,
Totally.
Yeah. So that's so interesting that, of course, there's microclimates within your own little space. Right. Yeah. What are some of the most surprising plants that you've thought, maybe like a plant that you thought would thrive where you're at and it didn't, and a plant that you didn't think would thrive and it did? So that's a tough one.
I was like, oh, you stumped us. It's not often you get Jeff and Elise to not be able to say something right away. It's year to year. It's so different. That's what's hard, right? I have one.
Yeah.
So like last year, or the year before, we had a challenge with valerian. Like the valerian is, everybody wants valerian, and it's like a really hard crop to get to be abundant, and we always have more orders than what we can grow, just because the yield is just not what we hope it to be. And then we had a super hot summer, and it was crazy, and we had a bumper crop in the fall of valerian, not last year, but the year before. That was surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't usually like the hot we have. So, it grows a lot in the shoulder seasons. I mean, and that's, I think, some of the things we're seeing too, is things that traditionally grew well here are kind of changing a little bit with this extra heat. We're dealing with extra smoke.
But that other part of it is we save some and save the seed from that valerian, because we're like, oh, these plants did really well with that hot and still had a great harvest in the fall. And so let's save some of the seed. So we do save about, the majority of
90 something percent of our seed is grown on farm. And that's a huge part of why we've become successful, is like, I think a lot of, for herb farming especially, is breeding your way. Well, no, just it's breeding your way to success, and I think like one of the classic examples is we give on the farm tour is plantain, broadleaf plantain. If you walk around, you'll find it everywhere. And, you're usually finding, small little leaves, right? They're not very big. We received from Mark Wheeler broadleaf plantain seed that he had been self-selecting over Pacific Botanicals for 35 years for large, big leaves. Well, those leaves are bigger than your hand, So the difference, it's like one's a thumbnail size and one's a hand size. It's the same species, but it's been selected for large leaf over 35 years.
Right.
And I think a lot of what we do as farmers is trying to find that high constituent that works in our climate, that works with our farming systems. And I think the same people do as gardeners too. It's like, oh, well, this is working really well in my garden. Well, I'm going to try to replicate that. Or this isn't working so well, but one of these plants out of 100 are doing great, or 1 out of 5 are doing great. Well, what's great about that? Maybe I could save that seed, and those genetics over time become more aligned with our specific location, our specific farming style. How we start the seed, and then you start to become more successful.
Well, I really like that idea for the small, for the small scale. Again, going back to somebody who has a garden, going back to the people listening to this who are just trying to grow some herbs or crops for their family, but really looking at the plants that are doing well and then letting them go to seed, collecting those seeds, and then planting them again next year. Because most of the time, I'd assume I do is I just go and get seed, right? You go and,
well, it is a whole different thing, because, well, one, you got to clean the seed, you got to do all these things to process the seed to be able to plant it.
Mm.
But also you're giving up your harvest amount
Sure.
because you have to let it go to seed, right?
Right.
So people who are garden and don't have lots of space don't always have the luxury of doing both, but you can definitely, save a plant or something and get plenty of
and you
seed.
let it go. Like, for instance, calendula, you maybe have 3 or 4 calendula plants in your garden. Well, for us, we have tens of thousands of them. So we can go out there and go, okay, hey, we want a big, fat orange flower that's high in resin content, and we mark that plant.
Mm.
Well, you can do the same thing. If you have 4 or 5 plants, you can go, okay, well, this is the one that I really like the flowers of.
Yeah.
And that last round of flower,
Mm.
I'm going to let that go to seed,
Right.
So I'm going to pick it for a while. And then, after 3 or 4 pickings, I'm going to let it go to seed and have enough time to mature that seed.
Yeah.
So there's ways to do it. And then even cuttings,
Mm-hmm.
we do a lot of cuttings.
Sure.
On the farm.
Sure.
So you could do cuttings from a lot of herbs.
Yeah.
As well. And that works really great for home gardeners.
Well, and also I know that there's kind of a trend that's happening with these local seed, these gatherings for people that have seeds, and they all kind of come in and do an exchange of seeds. Yeah. And I really like that idea of people all getting together just to, exchange seeds. Oh, I've got this amazing, calendula, and I'm going to get some of your garlic, or something like that. I think that would just be lovely. And
I think that's just such a way. It's a way of wealth, and it's a way of resilience within your community.
Yeah.
I think, and it's kind of like sharing, firewood or something.
Yeah. Right.
These are old barter systems that I think are really important. And I think farmers have been doing this for a long time. And that's one of the things I really love about the herb industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know we get together a lot of these different trade organizations. Is the herb industry is very sharing and a great community of people who are working. And it's the same thing amongst herb farmers and farmers in general. It's a very sharing community. And, we wouldn't be here today without standing on the shoulders of people like, Mark Wheeler and all the farmers at Herb Farm and, Richos and all these type of people that really led the way for decades ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And, their willingness to share not only seeds, but information and knowledge and mistakes they've made along the way. Here at this period of this amount of time we've been farming, to be as far along as we are, we couldn't have done it without, all that mentorship and just willingness to share.
Yeah.
And I think, on all of those successes, there are lots of times when we fail with crops, and it's heartbreaking to spend, 2 to 3 years, tending a field and spending hundreds of hours on something, and then to find out that, you can't harvest it, or you're harvesting it and you're actually the yield is so low that you're paying more money in labor as you're harvesting,
than what you're getting at. Huh?
Yeah. We had that happen with pleurisy root last fall. We were just like,
a couple of years.
The roots were so small, and you weigh out everything and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying more money every minute to harvest, and we're losing money by harvesting
it's
this.
Been in the ground for 2 years.
For 2 years, we just grew it, and you're just like, wow, okay, we're not offering pleurisy root anymore, which is so sad. Yeah. But that's when it's like, maybe everybody should just grow their own and have it in their backyard, because you just doesn't seem to be able to, for us at least, but maybe there's some other climate that can do it better.
Right.
Know?
Right.
So,
totally.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a tiny bit about garlic, but I want to talk just a little bit about garlic, because you two are the garlic champions, right? I believe you actually are champions when it comes to garlic.
You did win an award.
You told me. Really I was there, and you showed me your award-winning garlic, and I was so impressed, because I personally love garlic. I don't think I could ever do without that.
Well, the garlic king of Oregon really is not us. It's Avram.
Yeah, there's a guy, Garlicana, Avram.
If you're into garlic, that's somebody to check out.
And if you're looking to buy garlic seed, he's a great source. But we grow garlic for medicine makers, really, at this point. People making
our garlic is for your fire cider at Mountain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, fire cider, or people making, ear oils or all sorts of stuff like that. And, we actually ramped it down a little bit, but we used to sell quite a bit of garlic seed at one point as well. And, we did at one point. We purchased some garlic that was mislabeled from the original seed supplier, and we didn't really know what it was, but we kind of had our own.
And variation. Avram looked at it and he said, "You can't call this anything I know. just call it Oshala garlic. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to the seed. It was the Sonoma
It
County
was the Heirloom Seed
Heirloom Seed Expo.
Expo.
Jeff said, don't put a label on it. Those people are going to know that you don't know what you're talking about. These people are garlic experts. So I just put
It was Oshala Purple Stripe or something.
Oshala Purple Stripe. And then I came in and we won this big ribbon and award.
Best in class, blue ribbon.
In class. I go, Jeff, you won't believe this. It was so funny.
There was a few years where the Oshala Purple Stripe was highly sought after by seed buyers.
And are you still growing it?
Mix that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But we love garlic too. But I think one thing to note is that garlic has a high reputation of having disease, and part of that is just rotating it in the fields and not having it in the same place. You see areas like in Gilroy, California, where it's known for the garlic festival and all these things, but it's just been so overplanted in the same place year after year. Yeah. They can't really use organic methods anymore to grow garlic because it's so prone to disease. So you have to rotate where you plant garlic at least every 7 years.
Yeah, right? They recommend 7 to 9 years. We're on a 20-year rotation on our garlic. So our garlic only touches the same ground every 20 years, which hasn't happened yet in our farming career. But
there's a lot of math in farming. It's kind of surprising,
And that it's a good segue too. Something else I wanted to talk to you about is regenerative agriculture, because I think that's something that you're championing right now, and you're kind of innovators in regenerative ag, and I want to talk about what you're doing on your farm for that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think. I think the whole regenerative part, we were already kind of doing a lot of it. The soil health and all that was kind of this organic plus, right? So how do we kind of look at what we're doing in comparison to the regular NOP label, and Regenerative Organic came out. And then there's this whole fair trade or fair labor component as well. Right. And we've always been a big component of paying our people well and paying them, above a living wage. And then when the certificate came out, at first we were like, well, is there going to be, market demand? But we went after it, and we're really, really proud of the fact that we do pay our people that way. And, and that it really is a representation of how we've already been farming, So I don't think we really changed much, but it just kind of put into some more SOPs and more practice of how we were already doing things. Yeah. And, I love that Mountain Rose has also taken on a real, trying to get a real large amount of ROC, Regenerative Organic Certified product, into the website and selling that as well. And we're really proud to be offering, a lot of ROC product to Mountain Rose. Yeah. That's going to be coming on here, now and over the next year. And, beyond.
Well, we're obviously very excited about it here. I mean, it's taking that organic one step further, especially with the soil health, and it's something I know that you've talked about several times, even on this podcast so far, is the soil health and the importance of that. And I would like to ask you just a few questions about that, and then what are you doing as far as soil health? How are you looking at the soil? How are you testing? What's your method for that?
I mean, we've always been doing soil testing, looking at, organic matter and then nutrient and micronutrients. But with the ROC, they're also looking at, compaction. They're looking at some different factors, water holding capacity. There's some things that they look at in a different lens, which has been interesting to see. Our soils always test really high. And I think a big part of it is we're
high
resting.
Meaning good.
Yeah. Our area is normally low in, some certain nutrients, which isn't a big deal. But, really our practice is about rotating and resting our fields. So, we try to have 40% of our fields in fallow, 30 to 40% of our fields fallow in every given year. So we're kind of running this 3 years where we're farming the field, and then 2 years where we're trying to rest it. We're growing nutrient-rich cover crops. If it's not in a perennial crop, which is a perennial lasts multiple years, so things like lemon balm or nettle are all perennials. So they'll be in our field for 3, 5, 7, 10 plus years, some of these crops. Where others are annual, so they'll only be in the field for, maybe 9 months. And then as we pull those fields, we're moving into cover crops over the winter. So a lot of it's about, creating soil erosion, creating the conditions for the soil microbes to really thrive and feed, and then growing crops that are harvesting nitrogen and the nutrients we need to put back into the soil. And all this really is kind of the natural system of how we create space in the soil to hold nutrients. So the more organic matter we add into the soil, the more nutrient holding capacity it has.
Okay.
I think there's the part of it is there's different ways to add organic nutrients or just nutrients in the soil. So a lot of farms that are only, and especially in vegetables, it's really hard because almost all of them are annual crops, is that it leads you to having to bring inputs from the outside in instead of giving you time that you need to be able to do that in the field, which, time is money, right? It's like having your restaurant tables sit empty for a year or two and just have half of your restaurant filled,
right?
And you're like, man, I'd be making a lot more money if all the tables were filled and I wasn't like blocking these off to customers. So that's the part where it is difficult and it does cost more money because you're not having all your land in production. You're saying, hey, I'm going to give this land time to recuperate on its own, just like as a female bodied person being pregnant all the time wouldn't be very healthy, right? We would just start to birth probably children that weren't that healthy because we did it again and again and again, So just like that with the land and the soil, Mother Earth is like needs time to rest and recuperate on her own. And then we can start planting again, because in the end, farming is extractive industry. Like whatever plant is coming from that soil, you're pulling up those nutrients. So we have to give time to give back, or it's going to be depleted, or we're going to have to bring nutrients from somewhere else and put it in. And that, contributes to our carbon footprint and all of those things that we're trying to reduce as organic farmers and also as herbalists. It's like, well, what kind of herbs do we want to buy for our own products? Like, right. Do we want we're going to be putting these in our bodies too. So, and most of us are doing it for healing reasons. To take care of ourselves. So you really want to think about, what went into that herb, or what does that herb consist of? I always kind of say it's like the terroir, it's like the same, I feel like those herbs have different flavor profiles and different depending on where they were grown and how they were tended.
Yeah.
So
how much easier would it be to just be a traditional farmer?
You're talking, you might see a bald spot in the back of my head. I've been filling out ROC and organic paperwork I'm stalling on my second week now. It's Friday and I can't, I have to keep doing it. I know I was saying to my sister who was visiting, who's not in the farming world, I was like, it's kind of crazy to think as an organic farmer, I have to fill out all this paperwork. And if I sprayed, I wouldn't have to do anything. It's so bizarre to me. And I have to pay for it.
Right.
I have to pay. I'm like, how does that work out?
And most farmers are growing 2 to 3 crops in a traditional sense, So it's, it's much easier to specialize, to mechanize, to, really put your infrastructure and your people and your systems into place. In a very, clean, easy way to be more profitable. Where we're growing such a diversity of crops, we're trying to utilize, tools that have to work over a wide number of different things, and then it's also just more to keep track of, But I don't think we would do it any other way. We wouldn't be, we wouldn't be proud of what we're producing,
right?
So for us, it was never even a question. But there's no doubt that where the burden of proof is on the people who are doing it, in our opinion, right? The people they're doing it with natural systems and with good intentions. Not to say that traditional,
it's not traditional.
conventional, spray farmer.
Traditional is,
I guess, traditional organic. Would be organic, right?
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
That's why I'm always like, it's not traditional farming; it's conventional farming.
Yeah, and even that is questionable. But what's now modern agriculture? A lot of these people aren't in their fields every day.
Right.
They're not in connection with the plants in the way that we tend to the plants.
It's a different kind of farming.
It's a different kind of farming, and it's just not really with the type of farming that we were drawn to in any way.
Although it would be easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure you'd have your pushes, and they'd argue that it maybe isn't easier.
But I think I think that it's something to keep in mind when you're at the store, and you have that clear line between organic and conventional, produce or whatever you're buying, and you get to make that decision. Am I going to pay a little bit more for the organic? Well,
sure.
you should. You absolutely should, because
Yeah.
it's not only important for yourself and your body and what you're putting into it, but also people like you that are out there trying to make the world a better place, that we do need to pay a premium on that. That's the only thing that's going to work in the long run.
We say pay now or pay later. Right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's absolutely true. Yeah.
And I think if you have any semblance of care for the environment, like, we've been on so many farms of all types, and, just the difference in, these organic farms, these people really care about, what they're doing in the environment. I think anyone that goes to that process, they're really looking at it with a perspective of, how do I heal the planet with what I'm doing versus extracting.
Yeah.
So
one of the things too that I hadn't really thought about until I did more advocacy work in the agricultural world, because we always have farmed organic, is the health of farm workers when there's pesticides and sprays being used that are not healthy for them, that they are literally in, inches to feet of contact with. Often, like the people spraying your food that you might think, oh, it's not that much, I can wash it off, or I have this special soap I'm using. It's like you are actually making other people sick by wanting cheaper food. So it's pretty intense. And I've dealt with a lot of people in the orchard industries and different industries that are like, yeah, everybody in my crew has, pancreatic cancer or whatever it is. And you're just like, what? Like they all know. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing there? They feel stuck, and it's just like, it's really alarming.
But imagine that. I mean, you have this scenario in which somebody in a hazmat suit is spraying your food, and then they hand it to you, and they'll eat it. You're like, what? No, I don't.
Well, sometimes yours too is, I can get the part where people are like, oh, it's more diluted, or it's like not as much, but it's like people are like losing their lives for you to get cheaper food. And it's just like, it's just a pretty messed up system. So
absolutely.
I don't think it's producing quality thing. And I think that's really what, here at Oshala, like what differentiates us is we try to produce the highest quality herbs that we know of, and that's really what we try to do every day. And I think, that's just not the way that we're looking at farming, is how do we produce a cheap product to get, it out the door because we get paid by the pound.
Right.
We're looking at how do we produce the highest constituent content, growing the best varieties in the best location, harvesting it at peak potency, getting it to the dryers as fast as possible, drying it at the perfect temperatures to maintain those constituents, and then getting those to our customers so that they can really get their customers the highest quality, medicines or products or foods or teas or whatever they are selling,
And then the other part of that is just the energetics of what you consume that has been produced down the line by other people, right? And, some people, it's like a little too woo-woo for them or whatever, and then that doesn't really matter to them. But there is something about like, how were people treated down the line that produced what you're now consuming in your body? And so that's another part of, kind of like the ROC thing we talked about, again, is coming back to that, is like, how do you create a culture on your farm or your company like Mountain Rose does, where it's like, you want to elevate people as much as you can. Of course, there's always going to be some disgruntled employee or something went wrong, but
of course,
if it's in your ethos to really be like, hey, this is what we're striving for. We all make mistakes. There's a million things that we can not be like, man, we messed up on that one. We're not perfect by any means, but like, if that's your goal, is to really create an environment where all our farm workers feel that they are valued, they're appreciated, they can come to us at any time and talk to us about what's going on. Like we're, we really are a family. It's like something's going on with the health of your uncle or your kid or whatever, or you're stressed. It's like, we all need to be there to support each other. And so I think that's part of, what really comes out in the plants as well. So that makes makes it all worth it.
It's this overall healthy energy that's happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of, you had something else to say.
Well, I was just saying it just reminds me of why we like working with Mountain Rose so much. It's like, there's a very clear mission, you know, and when there's a clear mission, it draws employees that believe in that mission, and it creates a culture of people who are proud of what they do and are proud to be where they are and proud of, what they're producing.
Right.
And I think that really relates all the way through to the end customer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this sort of another great segue here, because something else that you put on is this herb camp. And I want to talk about herb camp a little bit and what's happening there, because you talked about like how you're, it's important to bring that energy and have that energy in your farm. Well, this is yet another way to bring in like-minded people that come to your farm and get to share in that experience. So could we talk a little bit about Herb Farm? Because I know it's coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, we do. We have Herb Farm every year in the summer. And then we also host, I think it's 8 or 6 herb tours a year where we invite people onto the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the herb camp and the tours is just really because we do believe that, having a connection to the plants and who are growing them for you is really important. It is important to know the story of what went down years or a year beforehand, and to really also appreciate that, all the work that went into it, and to value that. And we feel like having the farm open to people is important part of that experience. And, I don't think we ever take it for granted, but we're so used to so many plants around us all the time for people to be around fields and to make, medicine out in the field, or to do yoga in the morning when they wake up in a field of echinacea or, rue or whatever's next to them
Right.
at the moment. It's just an amazing experience that it's like, that's part of why we do all this, is to share this space with other people. I mean, we are a full production farm, so we're not like, can't have people coming in every day, and which we used to, in the beginning, people would stop in all the time. And then Jeff and I are so social, we're talking for hours instead of working. And then we're working, burning the midnight oil, trying to get things done. But it's just an amazing time where people come in and they camp on the farm, which is really fun too, and keep getting people a little bit out of sometimes their comfort zone by camping.
Are there classes as well?
Yes. Yeah. We have about, I guess there's probably usually around 12 teachers that come across the nation and then teach actually in the fields. And it's a diverse group of people, anywhere from people that are kind of new to herbalism to people running companies with, herbs for decades. And it's just all together, but not that big. There's like 150 or so people that come, and, we have music and we have a product contest, and we just have a talent shows and all kinds of,
3 meals a day. They're
all
on the
organic.
farm.
Yeah.
All organic, locally sourced from.
Do you win the talent show every year with your guitar?
No,
there's no actual winners.
Okay.
Like
but if you wanted to, you would, right?
No, there's a lot of great talent.
There's a lot of great stuff. And, Glenn Nagel, I don't know if you know Glenn, he usually comes up and does a bunch of course, his great, herbal libations and drinks, but he's always got his mandolin as well.
Oh, fantastic.
And, we're always doing some great herb tunes, and, it's always fun.
And then there's those that go to bed early and wake up and do a walk up we call Medicine Hill, or doing yoga on the field. And so it's kind of something for everybody, for sure.
And some of the teachers that are coming this year?
Well, Erica Galantine is going to be there, which I'm super excited
Fantastic.
about. And she's amazing. And we're going to be doing some hydrosols right on the farm fields. And then the next day, actually, she's doing not next day, but that Monday after herb camp, she's doing a 1-day intensive workshop on distillation on the farm, which is really going to be great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then Glenn is coming, and we've got Angela from Harmonic Herbs in Canada. Believe it or not, Canadians are still, some of them are still coming here.
They're still okay with us?
No, actually they're not.
Okay. Well, all right.
But we lost a few Canadians that were going to come. But we do. It's pretty interesting. And we're excited. Wish Garden is coming. We rotate around. We don't really normally, teachers don't come more than every 2 years. But Catherine from Wish Gardens Herbs is coming, and Lauren, who's a senior buyer for them. And we do a lot also on just talking to people about the importance of sourcing herbs, and like just knowing, how do you keep the integrity of a small company? Like Mountain Rose has done a really good job with that, is like, how do you grow into a bigger company but keep your values and integrity? Yeah. It's not always that easy.
It's not. It's not.
As you grow. And so there's just things like that are happening.
I teach a herb farming class every year.
Yeah, Jeff is teaching.
Yeah,
really.
And Matt DeBala
from Herb Farm
is teaching this year too, doing some botany stuff, propagation. Yeah, who else is, I can't even think of all the teachers on there, but if you look at the Oshala Farm website, we have a list of all the teachers that are going to be on there.
And how many people are you hoping to get to the camp?
Usually there's about 150 people.
Okay.
So yeah, we usually have to close up a few weeks before camp starts because the chef obviously needs to prepare and make all the lists. We're actually harvesting nettle today to make a great big batch of nettle pesto. Can you imagine nettle pesto for like 150 people? It's
wow. It's my favorite.
It's a lot
it's
of
one
nettle.
of my favorite, ways to make pesto. It's just with nettle. It's just so incredible.
Yeah. And also just want to mention a big thanks to Mountain Rose because they were a presenting sponsor this year for Herb Camp.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Thank you, Mountain Rose, for doing that. Yeah.
Always supporting.
Yep, exactly. It just allows us to keep the costs down also for people. So
I'm assuming there's still slots available.
There are.
Great.
There are still some spaces available.
And it's June 27th through the 29th. Are those the dates?
30th. Yeah. And then the 30th is the distillation class.
If you want to stay over.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody listening, if you can, no place better to be at that time. Oshala Farm Herb Camp. So.
Or bust.
Or bust. Absolutely. Right. Right. You're going to learn so much. You're going to come out an expert. So.
Or just more inspired and affirming all the work you do with the herbs is worth it, and you're just with amazing people. That's for us. It's always so great to go, whether it's like organic farming events or herbal events. It's like we're kind of the best group of people. You walk out going, this is a really amazing industry. Like I couldn't imagine doing anything else,
Yeah.
Good people.
Yeah. So. I think that the one thing I maybe the only thing right now that we can do to sort of heal from what is happening is just community. If we can all come together, and from all sides, it doesn't matter. Just all come together and learn that we're all in this together and that we're humans and that we, and that
basically have the same needs.
Yeah, we all have the same needs and just talk to each other. And this is one way to doing it. Like you get to be around these people and so
it is interesting. We do have quite a lot of generations coming to Herb Camp. Last year, more than ever, I think we had like 12 elders and the oldest one was 86, I think.
Wow.
Which was super cool. And we have a little, we all help everyone put up their tents and just really respect the elders, which I love that about the camp, that just, and then there's, babes in arms. We don't have a children's program because we're a full production farm. And I think Jeff and I wouldn't rest knowing that there's kiddos running around in the dryers or something that could happen while we're not. Irrigation ditches and things.
Right.
So we do start at, I think 12 years old, kids can come in and come to camp as long as they're with their parents. But it's a pretty fun time. And it also is a time which is pretty rare during the season that Jeff and I, even though it's work because there's so many people here, but we also really get to enjoy the farm with everybody.
Yeah.
And you kind of sit back and you're like, it's an amazing space. It's
you
really
see it
great.
through other people's eyes.
Right.
From my eyes, I see all the work.
Yes.
And it's like, we got to do this.
And all the work that needs to be done. Right. Exactly.
Oh
God.
We take a walk every night, and Elise's like, you got to do this. You got to do that. I'm like, please, I already know.
I never do that.
Well, I love that, and I love that you get to put that on, and thank you for doing it. It's really a special event, and obviously what you're doing on your farm, it's one of my favorite places on earth. It really is incredible there, and you two are two of my favorite people on earth.
That's really kind of you.
Yeah,
you're
just
a lot of people.
Love spending time with you.
Yeah, it's so amazing. You're just what you're doing and who you are. You're just such special people. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really kind.
So,
and I want to put a plug in just for Mountain Rose too, and just thank you for supporting domestic farmers. And
of course,
even when we were young and just trying to make it work, you guys were always supportive. And
I think the first time, God, that had to be 12 plus years ago. I think the first time I went to your farm, maybe something like that. It was
with Brian.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So long ago. Yeah, that was, it was, I remember how much the next time I went, how it had grown so much. I was like, wow, that is really, really impressive what you're able to do.
We are in a different situation because we're not farmers that just inherited family land, not just because that's a big deal. But I mean, we had a big mortgage payment for the very first day we moved on here. Like we had to make it financially work. So it does make you move at a quicker pace, but then also with our background and with permaculture background, knowing that you like need to observe space and you need to go slow and you need to, plants are not quick. I remember Jeff was like, kept planting radishes. I'm like, Jeff, I can't keep selling radishes. He's like, but it's 90-day harvest. Like you can sell them in 90 days.
Faster than that. It's like 35 or something. Yes. The fastest day to get to the market. We gotta make money.
But we're not radish farmers.
I just imagine someone just looking around like, where the hell do all these radishes come from? There's just like so many radishes.
Like, flood the market and be the cheapest radishes possible. But anyways, yeah, it's got challenges for sure.
Well, I think that what I love is that you're inspiration for those out there that are young and that want to do this, that it can happen. You're going to have to work hard.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take some chances. You're going to have to, but you can do it.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's amazing. So thank you for that.
I mean, we can do it as long as there's people like Mountain Rose Herbs and customers. That's my biggest thing is that I would like to say for customers that are listening, like, please support companies who are supporting domestic regenerative organic farmers, because without customers to buy the product, then we can't keep doing it. Right. So that's the thing. It's like, we really hope that people are going to rise to the occasion and pay that little bit more. And we realize that it is more, but that you are helping be part of the solution to heal our planet.
Exactly.
And without your support,
to heal our
communities
communities
you can't do it.
By paying people more than living wage and, creating opportunities for everyone to thrive.
Yes. And healing yourself.
Yeah.
With just better food, better medicine. So.
And be educated buyers, like find out, where the herbs coming from, what the carb. I love the sustainability dial you're all starting to do on your website where it's like, oh yeah, here's how far this had to travel to get here. And sometimes there's a time and place for that. And when you get that herb, don't waste it, know all what came into it.
Right. The amount of energy that
consume
it took.
it up and order more, but don't let it sit on your shelf and not use it for 2 years.
Or have an understanding of the alternatives.
Yeah.
That you can, if you don't want to buy something that's grown halfway across the planet, well, there might be another herb that you can buy that does the same sort of, similar thing.
A local analog.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that is so important.
About golden seal the other day, and I said, well, Oregon grapefruit is another great alternative.
Great. Yeah. So well, thank you.
Although I guess that's at risk too, but not on the farm.
not in Southern Oregon.
Not as bad as golden seal.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Don't drink it for a beverage.
Right.
Respect it.
Respect it. Well, respect all the plants. I mean, that's the key.
Totally, yes.
Just respect everyone and everything. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on. This was amazing.
And much respect to you, Thomas, for all you do, Thomas.
Oh,
we appreciate it.
Of course. I was so excited about this. I was like, I get to talk to my favorite people.
Likewise. Yeah. Well, we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I'm going to come down. I should come to the farm soon. Just come and hang out.
You're overdue.
I know. I'll bring my guitar as well, and we'll just hang out and chat a little bit.
Stay the night with us.
That'd be super fun. Build a fire, hang out. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, Herb Camp, we're going to have yurts this year, furnished yurts for some people that were encouraging us to do that. For those that we even have somebody flying from Ireland and places that are traveling. It's hard for them to bring, camping stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm not much of a tent. I'm not much of a tent guy.
But you could have a furnished yurt.
Okay. All right. That's a little. Okay. That's better. I like that.
But when Thomas comes down,
Yeah. Oh, but Thomas, you could stay at the house.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you again. This was amazing. I love you guys to death. You're just incredible. So
likewise.
Okay.
We're gonna go get back out in the field.
Okay. Sounds amazing. Okay.
Your lemon bomb's going in.
Yeah. Lemon bomb. Okay, Jeff and Elise, I was right. Incredible people. How fun was that? I just love hanging out with them, and I hope you did as well. So as promised, we've got another trivia for you. So again, if you know the answer to this, you have to email us at podcast@mountainroseherbs.com. And if you are chosen at random with the correct answer, you will get 25% off your next order. So that's a good deal right there. So man, I need to do that. Wait, I know the answer. So that's probably not going to work. Or would it work? I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Okay. This is one of my favorite plants. It's a common plant. You find it all over. And if you get stung by a bee, it is just absolutely perfect. Rosemary, one of Rosemary's favorite plant. So I hope there's not more than one answer. Well, I'm looking for a particular plant on this one. But again, it's for bee stings, it's for cuts, that sort of thing. You kind of chew it up, make a little poultice. My grandma did it all the time. Stick it on the bee sting goes away. You feel great almost immediately. What is this plant? If you know it, email us, get 25% off your next order. Thank you. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks.